Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, then hello, thank you for coming to my page. Please like, comment and subscribe. If you are not new, then welcome back. I thought today I would do a video of the books I've read so far. So this is something I'm always trying to document, and I managed to document it in 2018, but in 2019 I kind of like forgot to do it. So I figured I'm gonna do one now for the first 6 months of the year. I'm trying to also figure out like the best position. Sorry if I'm moving quite a lot. For the first 6 months of the year, and then I'll do it again at the end of the year. So my plan was at the beginning of the year to read 24 books. 12, I'm lying, 12 books. So to try and at least read one book per month, and that is excluding academic books or any books that I'm doing for like research stuff and whatever. So these are just books like out of fun. So the first one is this book. My camera doesn't want to focus. Okay, I need to hide my face. So this is Always Another Country by Sisonke Msimanga. She's absolutely really amazing. I really loved this book. It's basically like about her life, and yeah, I loved it. Very nice, highly recommended. And then I read this one, Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. It was my first James Baldwin book, and he's obviously really great. He's well known in the author space and loved. He says a lot of really amazing things. I kind of struggled with it at the beginning. I struggled like following the book, but I also think I was not reading it consistently. So you know, like you read a book and then you put it down and then you try to pick it up again. Sometimes it can be hard, but then once I got to like the swing of things and I like, you know, had to go back and start again, I really actually enjoyed it. I am wanting to read more of him because I think he says a lot of things and he addresses a lot of very important conversations. So it's essentially about like a guy who is getting into teenagehood, who has a stepdad, and it's about religion and sexuality. So it addresses a lot of issues that needs to be addressed. And then the fourth one is this book by my camera just seems to be taking long to focus, but it's An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. And I actually thought it was very interesting. So it's about two people who are married and just their struggles as they go through life. When the husband is arrested and sentenced to jail, to jail for like 12 years for a crime that he didn't commit. So it just goes through that journey of like, you know, them as a couple, the husband going to jail and coming out and all these things. Makes you question a lot of things, and it made me think about things in a different way, challenge some of the views that I have about like, you know, marriage and relationships and all these things. So I actually thought it was really nice. I think it's on Oprah's reading list. I'm not sure. I think it might be on Oprah's reading list for 2019. And then King 2, absolute favorite. It is by Jennifer Nangsubuka Makumbi. It's really lovely, but I also really love books that are they're not short stories, but they're like short stories that make up one big story. Excuse me. And basically this is it. It follows a lineage of the Gintu family. So Gintu is like the first ancestor that this book traces, and it just talks about like his kids and their kids and all their challenges and everything else, and basically everybody at the end meeting. I absolutely love books like this. I also read, which is not here because I read it last year, Homegoing, and Homegoing also kind of Homegoing and 12 Tribes of Hearty. Those two books I absolutely love, and they also have kind of like the same similar structure, and they kind of like the same similar genre. Basically just like, you know, going back and trying to understand our lineages, where we come from, how like what our ancestors did informs who we become and who we are and what ends up happening to us. I find stuff like that very interesting and very like informative, and I find that like everybody kind of needs to go through that journey of trying to understand where they come from. And then the Underground Railroad by Carlson Whitehead basically talks about the American Railroad. So it was essentially a railroad underground that back in the slave days was used by black people to run away from slavery, and basically it was like a way people could like run away and without being seen. It is, yeah. And this one is talking about the literal Underground Railroad, but also I guess the emotions that people used to go through, and like about slavery, and it addresses a lot of issues around slavery. Obviously in the States. I thought it was also very nice. It was very informative. There are a lot of emotions. There were some chapters that I'm like, I could have done without this, because it basically goes through different characters. Like it wants to talk about like each character and like, you know, what their struggles were, and some characters were really so small that I'm like, I really don't care about you, and you couldn't have I could have done without you. But I thought it was really nice, and I've heard that they're actually making it into a movie, and the South African actress is going to be the main actress and the main person in the show. So that's obviously something really nice to look forward to. This I'm still reading, but I'm pretty much done. I've got like one chapter left. Well, not one chapter, one short story left. It's called Sex and Lies. I see, like, sorry, my camera is very weird, but this is Sex and Lies. It is by Leila Slimani, and it basically talks about sexual liberation and sexual freedom in Morocco. It interviews a few people, mostly women, and talking about their experiences, talking about prostitution, and just trying to look at how sexual repression in Morocco kind of like, you know, leads to people basically doing all these things behind closed doors, and how that's dangerous. So it has very like moving information, but it's also, yeah, like some of the things you can't comprehend, but yeah, so I'm loving it so far. Mohale Mashiro's favorite auntie to ever write books. This is her second novel, because she also writes do people write or illustrate comic books? Well, write, because they're little bubbles. So she also writes comic books, and she's really lovely. I love her writing. Her first book, The Yearning, I really loved it. This one has short stories which are very like South African, like, you know, there's somebody who kills a person using a high heel, like at a taxi rank. There is a woman who is accused of playing God, because she basically is like she's a journalist. That's what they're called, right? People who like work with, basically put all these DNA things together to make something. And I think my favorite one was, Manoka, which is I think the first or second one. So for me it was also very nice, since a lot of the characters, if not all, are like, you know, South African characters, and that they've got South African names. The book kind of is set in South Africa, like most settings are in South Africa, so like Cape Town, like Shankubo, or like whatever. So for me it's always very nice to read books that are written with a setting in South Africa, because I can always, like, when they say Cape Town, I kind of like know where that is. So I loved this. And also I think I'm starting to like short stories, because I feel like you're getting different types of things. But also the other thing is, I also kind of sometimes feel like I'm robbed, because it's like a story is not complete, and I feel like I wanted to know what happens to this person. But Mahal is well known for doing that, so also really loved this. And then I reread Beloved, because I was like, I don't exactly remember this book. Somebody did say that Toni Morrison needs to be read twice every time, because it's almost like the first time you're reading it, the second time you're really reading it and you're understanding it. And it's also mostly based on, it also talks about slavery. This woman who basically kills her child, trying to like protect, you know, the child from being taken into slavery, and I actually found out that it was actually based on a true story. So yeah, Toni Morrison once again gets you thinking about things, writes very well, and it's basically like you're reading poetry, but you're actually really reading a book. So this was also very nice to reread. I think now I'm a little bit older than I was, obviously, and my understanding of things and how I view the world has slightly changed. So, you know, I was also like, I see you. And then this is, I just read this one. It's not about the burqa. Burqa. Yeah. And it's also a, what are these things called? I can't remember what these things are called, but it's essentially a collection of stories written by people, different people, and then edited by one person. I'll try and remember what these are called. So it's basically about Muslim women, written by Muslim women, and it's just talking about their different experiences, how they, like, it talks about feminism, it talks about sexuality, it talks about freedom, it talks about marriage, it talks about different Muslim experiences. And I really loved that. I was learning quite a lot about, like, you know, the religion, the faith, the people, but also it was very refreshing to be able to hear it from like a Muslim woman's perspective, because usually when you do read about books like this, it will be from people who have no idea what they're talking about, and also the people in the book are not like, everybody kind of has a different experience, even though most of them are like in the writing journalism space. They all have like different life experiences, which also made it like very nice to read, because it was like you weren't necessarily reading about like one person writing 12 stories about their different experiences. So highly recommend. And the last one is The Birth Partner. It is a book that I had to read for my doula course. Still reading a few of them. It's essentially just about like how to be a birth partner. A lot of highlights in it, nothing to write home about. If you're not interested in birth, or you're not going to be a partner for somebody, but I really loved all the information it gave me, which obviously then allows me to become a better birthing support structure. This was not for fun, but it was for fun because I love birth, but also like I have specific books I have to read before I can qualify. I'm still reading like 2 of them at the same time. In terms of my favorite, that if I had to choose I would recommend, I would definitely recommend Kintu, and I would definitely recommend It's Not Always Another Country. If I had to choose 3, sure, then maybe, yeah, I think it would be Mohale's Intruders. It would be Sisonke Msimanga's Always Another Country, and definitely Kintu. Number 1 would be Kintu, 2 would be Mohale Masheho, 3 would be Sisonke. I think, yeah, like I said, this is my absolute favorite so far. I love the style, I love what it stands for. I just love being able to see kind of, because it was like, you know, written like basically like actually they've got just now they've got, oh yeah, basically it has a family tree. Thank you for focusing. It basically has a family tree, and yeah, it just goes through the Kintu family tree, and from each kind of like child or family there's like a story, and like at the end you see everything kind of getting together, and it's very exciting. But thank you so much for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'm gonna do another one at the end of the year, because hopefully I will remember of all the other books that I would have read, and like comment down below about what books you read and what books you like, because I'm also always looking for like nice new books to read, and like, you know, just growing this library. His body baby, oh.